They barely looked up when she walked onto the range. A visitor? Maybe a clerk, definitely not someone who belonged on a sniper line. The SEAL smirked when she asked, almost shyly, "Can I give it a try?" She set the rifle down like she'd done it 1,000 times. No wasted motion, no hesitation, one breath, one squeezed steel shattered at a distance untouched for a decade. Silence swept the range. The same men who laughed seconds before now stared, frozen, because the record they thought untouchable had just fallen to her. Before we dive into this story, where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. Welcome to Grateful Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. Wind ripped across the jagged ridgeline of Nuristan. Ava Mercer lay on her side, left shoulder slick with blood, the scope trembling against her cheek. 2,180 meters, her voice barely audible. Crosswind heavy, one chance. Her vision tunneled into the crosshair. The reticle shivered as a digital clock in her ear ticked down 10 seconds. 9. 8. Her breath slowed, steady despite the pain, until the timer reached 0. The world cut to black. Only the echo of her heartbeat remained. Then silence. 4 days earlier. Range 12. Naval Special Missions Group. Little Creek. The air was heavy with the metallic tang of spent rounds and burned propellant. Master Chief Boone stood with his arms crossed, scarred knuckles resting on biceps as hard as steel. His gravel voice carried across the shooting lane. Target at 1260. Anyone worth a damn should land a clean shot. Ava stepped onto the range wearing plain clothes. No insignia, no badge, just a faded jacket and boots scuffed by years of dirt roads. 2 operators, Reeves and Pike, exchanged smirks, skeptical, dismissive. Boone's eyes narrowed. "And you are," she set her worn canvas tote on the bench, her tone flat. "Ava Mercer, 117 Rangers. I want to try." Boone raised a brow but said nothing. Reeves let out a chuckle, already turning away. But Ava was already unzipping the tote, pulling out a Barrett M82 with movements sharp, economical. She laid the rifle down and slid out a leather notebook. Its edges were cracked, the pages yellowed. She flipped to a section filled with scrawled equations, margin notes, arrows pointing to wind calls. "Not standard clicks," Pike muttered as she adjusted the scope. Her fingers turned past the safe marks every sniper learned in training. Instead, she stopped at values that looked wrong too far, too bold. Her breath steadied. She squeezed the trigger once, then again, so fast the 2 blasts merged into one. The range erupted in twin thunderclaps that rolled across the field. At 1260 meters, the steel plate rattled. Not 2 holes, but 1-2 rounds fused through the same entry point. Smoke drifted around her as she calmly reset the rifle. No applause, no cheers. Only the faint whistle of cooling metal and her steady exhale. Reeves's smirk vanished. Boone's jaw tightened. "Caleb used to note a thermal ripple trick like that," he muttered under his breath. For the first time, his eyes softened. The steel door at the far end slammed open. Lieutenant Commander Maddox stormed in, headset dangling around his neck. Urgency was etched into every line of his face. Hostage situation. Nuristan province. Americans held inside a fortified compound. He dropped a folder on the table maps, photos, coded signals. Overwatch across 7 ridges. They've upgraded jamming. We can't get drones through. Boone's head lifted slowly. "What do you need?" Maddox's answer was clipped. "A counter sniper." All eyes shifted back to Ava. She closed the leather notebook, her hand trembling for the first time. Her voice was low. "What's his name?" Maddox hesitated. "They call him the Watchmaker." The syllables landed like a hammer. Ava's breath hitched. The folder slid open to reveal a grainy surveillance photo. Her stomach clenched as the image bled into memory 5 years earlier. Her mother collapsed on a cobblestone street. Pinned to her chest, a note scrawled with 800 meter, signature shot. The scar inside Ava's chest throbbed. Her father, Caleb Mercer, killed years before in Mogadishu. Now her mother silenced when she stumbled too close to something called the Meridian. The watchmaker wasn't just a name. He was the phantom that had shadowed her family for decades. And now, he was waiting in the mountains. The operations room dimmed as Maddox rolled out a map. 7 red dots blinked along the ridge network, each an overwatch point, covering the compound below. Together, they formed a perfect killing ring. No direct insertion possible, Maddox explained. Every approach is cut off. The second we move, our people die. 11 hostages. Among them, Dr. Lila Bennett, nuclear physicist. Ava leaned forward, tracing the map with her finger. If you clear the points one by one, you won't last 2 minutes. Her eyes fixed on the cluster. You need a corridor, a shadow lane. Boone frowned. Mountain winds shift without warning. She shook her head. They follow heating rhythms, sunlight, rock face, thermal cycles. Each shift opens a micro window. Short, but enough. Her finger tapped the clock on the corner. 110 seconds. That's the gap. Maddox blinked. Can you guarantee it? Ava's stare was unflinching. I don't need to guarantee. I just need to be faster than him. Boone studied her, his silence long and heavy. He had seen talent, arrogance, bravery, but this was different. There was calculation in her voice and something deeper, vengeance buried under discipline. He finally spoke. Mission goal, 11 hostages. Priority is Dr. Bennett. His tone dropped. They suspect a tunnel system. You get 1 shot to stop it. Ava nodded once. Her knuckles whitened on the leather notebook. Inside, Caleb Mercer's notes weighted scribbled fragments of a doctrine the watchmaker himself might have inspired. Engines roared on the tarmac as the C-17 prepped for departure. Pallets of gear rattled under cargo nets, operators strapping rifles across their chests. The metallic echo of chains and footsteps filled the cavernous hold. Boone walked beside Ava, but his orders were clear. You're not stepping into the valley. My job is coordination only. His eyes locked on hers. You lead the marksman, independent cell. She slung the Barrett over her shoulder. The weight was familiar, grounding, almost comforting. Her response was calm, but her pulse hammered. Then I'll take them through the corridor. Outside, the night swallowed the runway. Jet blast rippled through the darkness, scattering dust like falling ash. The aircraft lifted, carrying Ava toward the same mountains where her family's fate had been written. And somewhere beyond those ridges, the watchmaker waited. The C-17's bay doors yawned open. Cold night air roared inside, battering every loose strap and buckle. Ava pulled her mask down, oxygen rasping in her ears like a second heartbeat. She stepped into the void. Wind shredded past her body as the mountains of Nuristan rushed upward. Her altimeter blinked, digits plummeting toward zero. At 4,000 meters, she cut the chute. Canopy snapped above, lines tugging hard against her bruised shoulder. Instead of dropping straight, she drifted sideways along a ridgeline, hugging the terrain to stay beneath radar sweep. Boone's voice crackled in her earpiece, steady and low. Thermal inversion in 20 minutes. That's your window. Use it. Ava angled her chute toward the slope, boots brushing treetops before she released and rolled into dirt. The rifle case slammed against her hip as she crawled into position. Night optics bloomed green across the valley. 7 heat signatures blinked like predators crouched in the dark. Target 1, 940 meters. The figure leaned against a tripod, unaware. Ava exhaled, squeezed, and silence reclaimed the ridge. Target 2, 1,120 meters. Wind pushed from the east, stronger than forecast. She fired a fraction early, 0.6 of a second later. The body folded. Target 3, 1,320. Mirage shimmered, bending the image into liquid waves. She shifted angle, trusted the false line, and watched the illusion break as the bullet found truth. Target 4, 1,470, moving uphill. She measured stride, led by a body length. The man collapsed mid-step, tumbling against the rocks. Target 51380, muzzle glinting through a slit. She couldn't penetrate directly, so she banked around off stone. The ricochet exploded shards inward. Silence followed. Target 61560. Hot air shimmered, but a 2-second cold seam opened between pressure zones. She slipped around through the pocket, threading a needle of air. Target 71610, only an eye visible between rocks. Her shot scraped the stone, kissing the edge before striking flesh. The ridge went quiet, corridor open. Below, NSMG teams surged into formation. Boone's growl filled the net. Shadow corridor is live. Move operators flowed through the gap like water. Then the warning hit. Thermal spike above you, Boone barked. 280 meters. Your 6 o'clock Ava's blood iced. She yanked an IR strobe from her pouch, hurled it downslope. Seconds later, the mountain cracked watchmaker's round, detonating against the decoy. She sprinted 30 meters sideways, lungs burning, diving into his blind angle. Her shot took the hidden perch, collapsing rock around the last nest. But victory lasted a blink. A counter round tore into her left shoulder, hot metal punching through muscle. The world tilted. Ava's rifle tumbled as she slid, dirt and stone rushing past. Static screamed in her headset. Then nothing. For 40 seconds, she was gone. Her body hung limp on the scree slope, blood dripping into dust. Then breath stuttered back, ragged but alive. She jammed a bandage into the wound, tightening until vision blurred. Her fingers fumbled the mic. "I'm still here," she croaked. Boone's voice cracked back. 10 hostages secured, 1 missing. Dr. Bennett unaccounted. Ava forced herself upright, pain exploding with every movement. Through scope blur, she scanned the valley. A hollow in the hillside glowed faint with heat. She saw charges wired along its mouth. Time demolition. Tunnel system confirmed. She rasped. "They're scrubbing evidence." Clock's running. Her legs dragged as she crawled to higher rock. On a makeshift landing zone, floodlights painted the dust. Watchmaker stood with Dr. Bennett at gunpoint, edging her toward a civilian helicopter. Rotor blades churned the night, scattering grit like knives. Ava steadied the Barrett, ignoring the fire in her shoulder. She couldn't risk a clean shot too close to the hostage. Instead, she aimed a meter short at stone jutting from the ground. The 50 rounds shattered rock, fragments spraying in a storm. Bennett collapsed sideways, rolling free of the crosshairs. Operators shouted as they rushed forward. Watchmaker pivoted, rifle sweeping. He spotted Ava's flash. His shot ripped across the ridge, catching her rib. She answered instantly. The duel echoed through the valley. Thunder traded from unseen peaks. Each round closer, each strike heavier. Ava's body screamed for surrender, but she refused. Her father's notes, her mother's blood, all of it funneled into one breath. She drew air deep, held, and sent the final round. It slammed into his chest, the force throwing him back. He staggered, clawing toward the helicopter skids, but his knees buckled, body collapsing beneath the rotor wash. Gunmen faltered, panic spreading. NSMG stormed the field, securing hostages and dragging Bennett to cover. The helicopter engines sputtered, then fell silent. Ava sagged against the rocks. Her scope slid from her grasp, glass shattering against stone. In her ear, Boone's voice blurred, fading into static. The only sound left was the slow, fading pulse on her chest monitor. Each beat weaker, each space longer. Then darkness crept in, swallowing the ridge. Hospital lights flickered overhead. Ava drifted in and out, the beep of monitors syncing with her shallow breaths. She woke to Boone seated beside her, face carved in granite. He laid a sealed drive on the tray, pulled this off Watchmaker's rig before extraction. He said, "The Meridian isn't just a code name. It's a network, X-intelligence, X-operators ghost with no leash." Ava blinked at the data shard, the size of a thumbnail. Boone's eyes burned darker than she'd ever seen. One name keeps surfacing, Admiral Gregory Ashford. He signed the Somalia directive that killed your father. The room thinned to silence. Ashford? A man who'd built his career on untouchable authority. And now, buried inside a dead sniper's cache, his signature emerged again. Boone rubbed his temple, voice low. I'm requesting discharge. I won't drag my unit through this storm. He slid her a duplicate of the encrypted files. Labs are being cleared. Evidence erased. This copy is all that's left. Ava's chest ached, not just from the wound. Her father's name, her mother's murder, now tied to a system with reach into the capital itself. The Meridian wasn't an echo, it was alive, moving. 2 weeks later, fog clung to Blue Ridge Training Ground. Ava braced behind a rebuilt Chaytak, her right arm strapped into a pressure plate trigger. The recoil avoided her damaged shoulder, channeling instead through ribs and brace. Her cheek welded to the stock. 600 meters out, a steel plate waited. Wind gusted at 18 knots, snapping branches overhead. PO-1 Reeves whistled from the spotting scope. Half minute of angle, dead center. In this wind, that's ridiculous. The target rang once more, the echo bouncing down the valley. Ava lowered the rifle, flexing her wrapped shoulder. It's not about killing anymore, she muttered. In DC, I don't shoot people. I shoot reactions. Reeves frowned, unsure, but the certainty in her tone left no room for doubt. She wasn't preparing for another battlefield, she was preparing for a stage. Washington, D.C. The Dirksen Senate building bristled with barricades and magnetometers. Ashford was scheduled to appear for a closed security hearing. Ava moved inside disguised as Capitol Police SRT, uniform crisp, visor down. Her credentials, cloned with precision, slid past the first checkpoint. But as she set up at Echo Post, a red flag blinked on a handheld scanner. Secondary verification. One of Ashford's security staff narrowed eyes, hand grazing his radio. Ava's pulse steadied, her borrowed ID hanging by a thread. She shifted position, letting the wave of SRT shuffle cover her. Boone's voice whispered in her ear from a monitoring van blocks away. You've got maybe 90 seconds before they lock the floor. Through glass, she saw Ashford approach, decorated uniform, medals aligned, smile crafted for cameras. But Ava wasn't looking at ribbons, she watched his eyes. She raised the scope, not to fire but to record. Her reticle fixed on his face as aides handed him a folded paper. Across the page, bold letters, Sparrowhawk present. Ashford's jaw twitched. His eyes darted to windows, then froze on the corridor where Ava waited. His lips pinched into a tremor, the barest slip of a man losing composure. Every microsecond burned into the camera feed. The facade cracked, reaction captured. Proof he recognized the code name only Meridian veterans would know. Alarms trilled. Capitol security swept the halls, locking every checkpoint. But Reeves had already yanked the team. Exfil hot, data streaming to secure drives. Ava melted with them, never drawing a weapon. She didn't need to. The shot she fired was digital, and it had landed. That night, encrypted packets dispersed through dark channels. 3 recipients, only 2 senators with reputations for independence, and 1 investigative journalist known for surviving lawsuits. The last copy went to a DOJ contact with a history of burning careers. Each file bore the same subject line, Meridian Ashford Reaction. Log plus ledger, no flair, no drama, only evidence. In hours. Corridors buzzed. Phones rang without pause. Aides rushing with sealed envelopes. Cable networks whispered of sealed subpoenas, though no names aired yet. Ashford's office denied everything, but denial couldn't erase his micro-expressions caught in HD, nor the ledger tied to accounts off Cyprus. The ripple had begun, unstoppable now. Boone watched the news from a rented room, hair unshaven, hands restless. Committees opening a probe. He muttered into the secure line. Ashford suspended pending inquiry. On the other end, Ava sat silent. Her leather notebook lay open. Caleb Mercer's handwriting etched across yellowed paper. She traced the lines with a finger, words bleeding across decades. She didn't smile, didn't celebrate. She only closed the book, pressing it to her chest. For the first time in years, there was no gun in her hands, only her father's notes, heavy with both curse and salvation. The storm had only begun, but for one night, she let the silence hold her. Arlington National Cemetery shimmered under late summer heat. White markers stretched endless, aligned with painful precision. Ava stood at graveside, uniform jacket pressed, arms still bound beneath cloth. The honor guard folded the flag into a tight triangle, every crease perfect, edges sharp as blades. They placed it in her hands, silent weight heavier than any rifle. Boone stood at attention, chest squared, jaw locked. He did not speak, nor did the others in dark dress blues. Only insects hummed in the grass as the rifles cracked their 21 volleys into sky. Ava pressed the flag to her heart. For Caleb Mercer, her father, returned at last to Arlington. No speeches, no applause, just earth, stone, and memory. Weeks later, Boone unrolled a fresh map across a steel table. Red pins dotted the board. Hamburg, Brussels, Singapore. Each pin marked a meridian cell, each line a channel of money, weapons, or data. Reports spilled in faster than they could read. Cells self-terminating, documents burned, servers collapsing. Every shuttered site left trails of ash and fear. Boone nearly fell in Hamburg when a tail closed within meters. But the Sparrowhawk network triggered counter-surveillance, pulling him into cover. The plan Ava had seeded worked capture not with gunfire, but with exposure. Ava watched data scroll like weather patterns. To her, each number breathed like gusts of wind. She read ledgers the way she once read mirage and crosswind, hidden truth inside noise. No longer a trigger puller, she had become analyst and lead, directing teams across borders, eyes in glass towers, ears in embassies. Her rifle gathered dust, yet her reach had never been greater. Vienna, autumn. A security summit filled the grand chamber with flags, translators, and cameras. Anthony Chambers, once Ashford's shadow, stepped to the podium. His voice rolled over the crowd, polished, confident. He spoke of transparency, of cooperation, of building trust. Every word scripted to bury Meridian deeper underground. Then the lights shifted. Screens behind him flickered, replaced by ledger scans, payments, signatures, false fronts, one by one. The walls bloomed with evidence of Meridian's operations. Cameras whirred, shutters firing like rifles. 200 lenses locked on Chambers as sweat traced down his temples. His jaw clenched, lips stammering with no line to hide behind. The crowd erupted, reporters shoving forward, security scrambling. Chambers froze in a flood of flashbulbs, his empire unmasked without a shot. The strike was bloodless, but devastating. Somewhere in a control van blocks away, Ava watched. Her hands hovered over the keyboard, heart steady. She whispered to herself, "No bullet, just truth." Back in Virginia, the circle closed. Range 12. Little Creek, the place where Ava had first fired under Boone's skeptical eye. The air was crisp, trees just beginning to turn. She unfolded the CHATAC, scope gleaming beneath pale sunlight. Target steel stood at 1560 meters, daring her. Reeves called wind, voice cutting through static. Northwest, 14 knots. Mirage unstable. Ava steadied, breath sinking with the pulse in her wrist. Trigger broke clean. The crack thundered downrange, echo bouncing off tree line. Steel rang, true record set. No fanfare needed. Boone lowered his binoculars, expression unreadable. "After all this, what do you choose?" he asked quietly. Ava lifted her cheek from the stock, eyes sharp but calm. "I don't shoot people anymore. she said. Her hand rested on Caleb's notebook beside the rifle. I shoot truth. She sat alone later. Notebook open under fading light. Pages worn. Margins filled with her father's notes and her own. One line underlined in pencil. Almost faded with time. The impossible shot is often the one you don't take. Her finger lingered over the words, steady now. For the first time, she believed them. Camera closed in on the notebook's cover, then to a small brass nameplate, stamped clear and bold. Ava Mercer, Sparrowhawk. The screen darkened, heartbeat fading into silence. Not the rhythm of fear, but of a war still shifting, battles yet to come, and a soldier who had learned that sometimes the deadliest weapon was restraint.